Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to another installment of our Voices of the Festival. I hope you're having a great time. Happy New Year. This is our first chat of the year, and we are happy to have Howard Watkins in our home. By the way, I'm in New Orleans. I'm conducting a show for New Orleans Opera, and actually, and in the amazing New Orleans Opera Guild House, which look at this room, how beautiful this, how New Orleans, with an amazing view. Gorgeous space. Really. So it's really a fantastic space. Let me invite Howard. Howard. I don't see Howard. It's a piano. I don't see Howard. There we go. Now he'll join. There you are. Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
I think it's perfect. Now it's going to get a little more. Well, this is quite unusual. Usually that's my background. So we changed the background, and then you are in it.
I love it.
By the way, everyone should know, certainly everyone in Savannah, that we are partners. So this is our home, and Howard is a home in New York. Hello, how is it there?
It's good.
Cold?
It's probably not as beautiful and warm as it is where you are in New Orleans, but it will do.
Look, today we have a bit of a cold spell, so it's what is it? Probably in the 50s. So for New Orleans, it is a cold spell. Hopefully we'll go back to 70, but it's still nice. And to be here in the house, in the guild of in the opera guild home, it's incredible. It's just a luxurious 1860 home with all the furnishings that was donated to the New Orleans Opera, and that's where the offices are, but also they do events, and it's a historic home in the Garden District, and you know how much I like history and architecture, so this is like amazing setup. So
beautiful background there with that chandelier and
and that's where is it? And then, all that everything is beautiful. So, and you had a great concert yesterday, and today you're going to Philadelphia. Tell us, what did you do yesterday?
We did the world premiere of a piece, a song cycle called Songs in Flight by the fantastic American-Nigerian composer Sean Opeblo. This was at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And Songs in Flight is a reaction to ads from a database that is slave owners trying to recapture their escaped, their fugitive slaves or enslaved peoples who have escaped to freedom. And so the various ads have different levels of inhumanity in the way that they refer to their property. And Sean has written an incredible 55-minute work that represents reactions to the different ads. And in it, you see the lives of the different enslaved peoples and what makes them special and what makes them different. And a couple of contemporary mentions of Arbery, and George Zimmerman, and it's just an incredibly powerful work. There were some projections in the background, and it's texts that are from fantastic collaborators who capture all kinds of different elements of this. It's a very special work. Yeah.
Wow.
And with that, sorry, I forgot to say, it's with fantastic singers, Rhiannon Gibbons, who's a well-known folk singer. She crosses many different idioms, and she plays banjo incredibly. She does an opening set with banjo. Karen Slack, who is an incredible advocate for our arts and a soprano of your dreams. Reginald Mobley, countertenor, is really terrific countertenor. And Will Liverman, who made such a splash at the Met last year in Fire Shut Up in My Bones, and who I have a personal history with because I played for his audition at the Met, in the Met semifinals many years ago now, many years.
And Will also has been in Savannah at the ATC, so and it's a good friend of our president of the board, Barry and Naomi. So that's good that I mean, that's another connection to Savannah.
Yes.
That is, and you are performing the cycle again, right?
Yes, we are repeating the cycle in Philadelphia at the Perelman Theater on Sunday afternoon, and heading to Philly tonight. We'll rehearse tomorrow, and then do the performance Sunday afternoon. It's really special, and I'm excited for the people in Philly who get to hear it, and for us who get to have another shot at performing it.
And the auditorium at the Met Museum is large. How was the attendance?
It was completely sold out. It was excellent. I think the theater seats around 700 people. The Grace Rainey Rogers Auditorium, I think, and beautiful space, and a really appreciative audience who were quiet and rapt with attention. I mean, I think it's impossible not to be.
It's very intense and very deep.
Yes.
Accent and.
Yes.
And talk about that theme and well, not the day specifically, but related to the African American experience. That was one of the reasons why you were named recently one of the 29. Is that the number? 30. 30. Tell me, by opera, by Musical America, tell me exactly the title. 30 most.
I think 30. I'm never good with these things for myself. I think it's 30 top professionals of the year.
Great, congratulations!
Oh, thank you. I was very honored and excited to receive that honor from them. I think, in particular, they were reacting to some of my work in advancing African American pieces and Black repertoire, and working with Tulsa Opera for the Greenwood Overcomes and the Tulsa commemorating the Tulsa Massacre, and but also other projects like a project in Hamburg, Germany, with Tom Hampson and Hamsong, and just advancing much of that repertoire and getting to work and make sure that composers of color, particularly Black composers, are getting their works out there and heard by the public, and
Right.
getting their due. In particular, the Tulsa Opera one was trying also to give voice to composers who, for reasons of maybe systemic racism or for whatever reasons, have not had the chance. So there were a number of commissions of composers, of all living Black composers. It was really a very special event.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. So again, that was a 30 most important people in the business by Musical America, which is not just opera or voice. It's all genres of music making and production and instrumental, symphonic, and also opera.
Yes.
So congrats.
Thank you. Thank
In
you.
fact, the piece that you did yesterday will be certainly related to that activity that Musical America certainly was interested on, to give you the prize. So
Thank you.
very, very, very interesting. And so going back, so where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Dayton, Ohio. I still have my family, my mom and dad, and my sister and nephew. They're in Centerville, Ohio, which is a suburb to the south of Dayton. And a lot of people don't know this. I actually was born in El Paso, Texas, where Jorge will be conducting, where you will be conducting later, Maestro. My dad was in the Army there. And eventually, after a couple of years, we moved to Dayton, where he worked at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And so I grew up there in Dayton, originally in the northern suburbs of Dayton. And then we moved to Centerville when I was in high school.
So,
Yeah.
so you're Ohio, it's Midwestern by adoption, but actually Texan by birth. So.
It's true. It's so true.
Citizenship with the nation of Texas and the American. I'm just kidding. Great. And when do you study music?
It's a funny story. I actually, as a kid, I studied guitar for a few minutes, a little while, a couple of years. And at a certain point, my sister started studying piano. And so my parents bought a little upright piano that we still have there in Centerville. And when you buy a piano from Wurlitzer Piano, at least at that time, they offered free piano lessons. So we went and we took our free piano lessons. But I mean, they're what a store can offer, and they kind of zipped by pretty quickly. And my parents said, if you really want to take real piano lessons, you can also study with the same teacher, who Ann Davis was her name, and she actually lived right across the street from us. And so I started taking lessons with her, and eventually piano kind of took over because I had an affinity for it and really liked it. And guitar fell by the wayside. I did not have an affinity for it, and it hurt my fingers. So I studied.
How do you feel before that, when you were taking those lessons? Do you remember when you're taking the first lessons at Woodley?
Yeah, I do remember. I remember that, learning to play some things by a little kind of by ear and learning to read, but everything was going really fast. I mean, like, doing chromatics and doing everything really quickly right in the first lessons. And I was grabbing it, but it was too fast if you were going to be really serious about learning it. And so my parents were prescient and somehow thought, if you really want to do it, let's do this the right way.
But it seems that you liked it. Do you remember liking it?
I do remember liking it. I did like it. And I think I probably, even to this day, I'm drawn by harmony and color of piano, and somehow I just liked the way you could make sounds at the piano.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great. So then you go to Mrs. Adams and or
Davis, yeah.
And then I know at some point you started with Mrs. Howard.
Yes, exactly. I eventually played in band and played some band instruments, went to undergrad, and when I started at undergrad at the University of Dayton, I started taking piano lessons with Patricia Howard, who was on faculty there. So it was kind of funny. I often would call her on the phone and, Mrs. Howard, this is Howard, how are you? So I studied with her for a couple of years. After a couple of years of actually being an engineering major, I decided to study music seriously and make that my life, to just jump into the deep end of the pool of music. And started studying with a gentleman, Tibor Sas, who came to teach at University of Dayton. Tibor is Hungarian-born, grew up in Romania, and a fantastic piano teacher. And I had the great luck to work and study with him. I have hours of lessons every day, multiple lessons a week. Great luck and great experience, especially since I was kind of coming from behind at that point in undergrad, because I had to finish my music studies in basically 2.5 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, University of Dayton. Yeah, because I started, I became a music major as a junior, and so I only ended up going half a half a year beyond the normal 4-year process. So that meant some really full years and a lot of studying, but it was great experience.
Okay. It's like Kevin Miller says hi. Hi, Kevin.
Hi,
And
Kevin.
and then um and then
And then um, at a certain point, I knew I wanted to go to grad school. That teacher, Tibor, had done his grad studies at University of Michigan. So Michigan was one of the schools I considered for master's. I also applied to Manhattan School of Music, which is kind of funny since you ended up teaching there. Um, and eventually I got into Michigan and got a scholarship, a full fellowship to go and study there. And I moved to Michigan and studied with Charles Fisher, and studied solo piano, actually. Was doing a master's in piano performance, and studied all the solo repertoire, piano, concerti, sonatas, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I did a lot of collaborating and really enjoyed it. And the more I did it, the more into it I got. So I completed my master's. I had many opportunities to perform solo. I was a winner in the concerto competition there, so I got to perform Liszt's second piano concerto with the fantastic school orchestra there. And when that finished, I got a job there, actually, at Michigan, working in the dance department. So I taught music to dancers. I played for ballet. I helped coordinate the hiring of pianists to play for class, and actually we also used a lot of percussion. And it was a great experience. I got to work with dancers. I got to experience the unique creativity of dancers, and had a good time. And then spent my off hours collaborating. I played for singers. I played for every instrument in the school. Played lots of people's lessons and recitals, and just learned a lot of collaborative repertoire. And somewhere along this was a 5-year patch when I was doing that. And somewhere along the line, I realized, wait a minute, I'm doing this all the time for fun, but this is actually what I really like to do. And when I was at Michigan, I had gotten to meet and work some with the fantastic collaborative pianist Martin Katz, who we both know, who was such a mentor and friend to us. And I had taken some lessons with Martin and his song class when I was in my master's. And so somewhere along the way, I realized I kind of want to do this. I mean, the dance thing was a wonderful experience for a while, but it wasn't my life's goal. And I realized that to take the next step, it really would be a good idea to go back and study collaborative piano seriously. And so I applied to Michigan doctoral program and to Eastman program, actually, and eventually decided to stay at Michigan and work with Martin. So I did my doctorate there in what we would now call collaborative piano. At the time, it was called piano accompanying and chamber music.
right.
Yeah.
The major is not called that anymore?
No, I think it's called collaborative piano now. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because a master's in accompanying and chamber music. So.
Yes. Yes.
All right. And why a doctorate and not another master's?
Oh, that's a good question. it didn't even occur to me to think about pursuing another master's. A doctorate, besides the amount of study that's involved, also is the degree that pretty much that many schools require nowadays, and even at that time that schools require if you want to be able to teach in academia. And it just seemed like the way to go for me, to have the time and the depth of study to be able to work with Martin. And yeah, it's just kind of what I wanted to do. So I pursued that. I never thought about that. That's a really good question that you asked. I never thought about doing another master's. I think that's relatively rare. I don't know. Is that the case in Argentina?
No, no, because doing masters in Argentina is unusual. But I did. It's different. For example, in Argentina, there's not really undergrad and grad in the conservatory. It was like the elementary degree and a superior degree. That's the name, piano element.
Mm-hmm.
The first 3 years of college, and then the second 3 years of college, and the second 3 years of college age, let's put it that way, is more specialized on one thing. The first is more of a teaching degree, although it's not, and then the second one is more of a performance degree. So in my case, I did do a double master's, but I was doing different degrees. I did piano and conducting at the same time, but that's more of a double major. I should say thought, it's just because master's is more performance oriented, and the doctorate, it has a bit of investigation and research component.
Yeah, I think in that program at Michigan, the doctorate is performance oriented as well. But you're right; it does have it goes further in academic ways. The curriculum is just by virtue of the fact that it's a longer degree, so
Right.
you get more into things. And so while I was there at Michigan, I also was the pianist for the Men's Glee Club, which was a fantastic experience. And I got to work with Jerry Blackstone, incredible musician, great choral conductor. We did. I played for them for a long time. My first tour with them was a tour in the Far East of Korea, Japan. We started in Hawaii, Taiwan. The next international tour I took with them, I think 4 years later, was to Central Europe. So we were in Poland, Germany, Austria. Where else? Well, in any event, the third international tour that I took with them was to South America. And so, of course, you know this story, but our
And that's
friends here.
actually, for everyone to know, we first met in Buenos Aires. I knew I was coming to study with Martin also at Michigan, and Martin says to Howard, there's the new student coming from Argentina. Now that you are going to be in Argentina, coincidentally in the summer of before I get to Michigan, so why don't you guys connect? And we did. So
Exactly.
dental,
Exactly.
yeah. So you were with the Glee Club many
Yeah.
years. Like this every 4 years you have a thing. So you were there at least 9 years.
Well, I think it was a 9-year period. I started playing for Glee Club the second year of my master's. I played through them throughout that 5-year appointment, and I played for them the first 3 years of my doctorate. So yes, over a 9-year period. Yeah. Oops.
It's a little noisy here, so sometimes I mute it.
Okay.
So and after that, we're getting into the heat of the thing.
The heat of the battle.
By then,
Yes.
you were playing for more instrumental and vocal, right? In Michigan, you were doing a bit of everything. And in fact, you did a lot of instrumental.
Yes, I did a lot of instrumental collaborating at Michigan. Over the years, even before the doctorate, I had worked a lot with string players and worked at a camp called Meadowmount, which is a fantastic string camp in upstate New York. I did 3 years of that, and then for a number of years after, I was the studio accompanist for Paul Cantor's studio at Aspen Music Festival. And so I was at Aspen, not every year, but most years between 1992 and 98. The year between finishing at Michigan and when we moved to New York together, that was my last year at Aspen Music Festival. And your first year at Aspen Music Festival, first and only year at Aspen Music Festival. Oops, you're muted. You're muted there, Maestro. You're muted, Maestro.
Based on your recommendation, I was able to get the opera fellowship there. That just happened. But so many years in Aspen, and then you moved to New York. We moved to New York. But
right.
What was the motivation to move into New York?
Well, I already knew that as much as I had enjoyed and loved Ann Arbor and still love Ann Arbor, as anyone can attest, I knew that it was time to move on to do something else. I felt like I had kind of done what I wanted to do in Ann Arbor at the time as someone who's still kind of growing and learning. So I already knew that I wanted to move to New York and freelance, and we decided we would both together move to New York and get our feet in the water and see what there was to do. And Martin told me that the Met Young Artist Program had reopened the piano component of their program. So they were taking recommendations for pianists and accepting auditions. That's what I was looking for, accepting auditions for pianists. So I flew to New York, I think, the May before we came here, and I was one of kind of, well, it's hard to explain, kind of one of 3 pianists who won the audition and who were brought into the program. And so with that, I was able to come to New York, be involved in the Young Artist Program as a pianist, which involved playing for singers, studying with the various music staff of the Met, and the great conductor James Levine. I got to work with him quite a lot. And yeah, it was great. And then even in the first year, I think I had one project working on a main stage production at the Met. I worked on Tosca, the opera Tosca. And I didn't actually play for that show, but I did some backstage work and cueing and just got to have a feel of how that works, working in an opera house. And it was a good start. I think the second year is when I played my actual first show at the Met with Levine conducting, and it was Otello. For those of you who know this work and who know what we do, that's a tall order to start right in with Otello. It's just difficult to play. It's difficult to play and cue and do all the things that we need to do. So it was a challenge, but it was a lot of fun. That was with Levine conducting. I think it was Barbara Fritali was Desdemona. Placido Domingo was Otello, and James Morris was Iago.
Yeah. Wow, amazing cast.
Yeah.
So a couple of things from that. So you were at the Young Artists for 2 years.
Yes.
And great, you have amazing colleagues that now are major stars,
yeah,
right? So
that's exactly
names. I mean, certainly Carrie Ann Matheson, that is now at the Adlers, and Merola was the other pianist on your second year. And in terms of the singers, some of them.
Actually, Carrie Ann and I did not exactly overlap in Lindemann. The first year after I was finished was Carrie Ann's first year. but I overlapped with Brad Moore as a pianist, Mary Jo Gothman, who is now a dear friend and who is working in Minnesota. Singer colleagues, I was there at the same time. In my direct class was Mariusz Kwiecin, Danielle Denise was in my class. Who else? Alexandra DeShorties, who is a very, very close friend. Alfred Walker was already there in the program, Greg Touré, and we all overlapped. It was quite a lot going on there.
Right. And yes, Othello as your first main show. That it's quite busy, but also you had a full season that year. When do you start full-time engagement at the Met?
Well, the first few years, even after I finished the program, I got some assignments every year from the Met, and so I was a part-timer, as are most of the staff at the Met. So I think, I don't remember how many were then, probably more than now, but now we have about 40 music staff members at the Met. And after, I think, maybe in 2008 or 9, something like that, so after about 9 or 10 years, I was invited to become a full-time member of the music staff. Now we're up to 11 full-time members of the staff. At one point, we had only maybe 7, and only 3 of those were pianists. Even as of last year, this year we've actually managed to get our numbers back up a bit. But the point is that there are not that many full-time music staff members who are pianists. So I'm very honored to have been.
But Kate,
that.
And Caitlin is one of the new.
Yes.
So, hi, Caitlin.
Yeah.
And Casey say hello. Thank you for watching and thank you for the message. Right. And so yeah, because the you will think that they have a major music staff at the Met instead of full timer, but it's actually the full timers are about 6 or 7, as you said, and then the part timers are 40 and 50, a lot.
Yeah.
And you said that you're not all pianists. Where are the other full timers in the music staff?
Many of the others are prompters. So we have full-time prompters. We have the pianists. We have backstage conductors. I think most of the time that I've been at the Met, we had 2. I think we only have 1 full-time backstage conductor. But another thing that's happened in recent years is that we've kind of blurred the lines a little bit between the roles. So many of the people who prompt actually also play shows in other circumstances as pianists, and vice versa. I have never been the scheduled prompter on a show, but I have prompted a lot on shows, either substituting for someone, or in one case, a show that was not supposed to have a prompter. One of the cast was insistent that we add a prompter. This was Werther many years ago, and so I became the prompter for that run of Werther. It's kind of fun, actually.
Right.
So yeah.
The music staff at the Met is you can be an assistant conductor, and you do a lot of jobs as assistant conductor, just playing the show, right, coaching singers, backstage conducting, prompting, even some of them are assigned as language diction coaches.
That's true. Assistant conductor in our title at the Met means assistant to the conductor. That's a better way to think of it than that we actually conduct. The people who are in charge of covering the conductor himself are called cover conductors. So music staff consists of prompters, pianists, cover conductors, language coaches. They may be assistant conductors, or they may not quite have that rank, but they're still involved as part of the musical preparation of a show. And yeah, that's our we have one full-time dance pianist, Brian Fitzouza. For many for many years, it was Whit Kellogg, the late Whit Kellogg, who was then supplanted by Stephen Mitchell. And Stephen is fairly, I think he's in his second year now of retirement. Congratulations, Stephen. And now we have Brian Fitzouza, who's our dance pianist. So I think I covered it.
There's also a pianist for the chorus.
Yes,
Or
right. David Moody, who's incredible. And he's a full-timer, a welcome addition to our full-time staff.
And
fantastic.
From the point of view of someone that is not used to the opera world, I can imagine that there's a pianist for rehearsal. So they have the conductor and the pianist. What is it? A prompter. What is a prompter? What's a backstage conductor?
Yes. Well, I'll say in a given rehearsal, we usually have a couple of pianists. So one maybe taking notes and paying attention, and maybe we switch off, just depends. We have the cover conductor, who in many cases is the one doing the actual rehearsal, or maybe sitting next to the principal conductor if he or she is there. And the prompter is the person who, they have this Italian word, suggeritore, who is the person who takes the text that's being said and kind of out of phase, slightly ahead of when it's happening, reminds everybody of what the coming text is going to be. So it's someone who throws the text out there for the singers to remind them. They may not say everything, but they just give a suggestion of what the coming line is going to be, kind of in the gaps. Everyone has their different styles, and singers have different needs. So prompting can work differently for different people. But, you know, like if you were doing something, let's say, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday. So the prompter is just slightly ahead, giving the suggestion of what's going to come. There'll be different volumes and different amounts of text, different amounts that they give depending on what's necessary. But in these days where many times singers are coming from lots of engagements and have lots of things to do, it's not a bad idea to, in a rep house like this, to have a prompter who can help with text. Sometimes the prompter can help with staging, saying, oh, there may not be enough time for whatever's been rehearsed, and so maybe the singers could use some help to know which way to go. So the prompter can, at the same time that they're giving these suggestions, they can point this way, remind the chorus, come down, chorus stop, because the prompter also cues the chorus. Same.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, we're thinking that sometimes people will think, oh, well, the singer just know the music, but actually you had to learn it. You had to, it's hard to memorize. And for these stars that performed a lot of shows in different places, as you say, if this weekend I'm in Covent Garden singing Tosca, and tomorrow I'm in the Met singing Butterfly, and suddenly I need to remember the whole 2 hours of Italian text.
Right.
That is very, very helpful to have someone with the score reminding you of exactly what it is. It's a great safety net.
Exactly. And if you come to the Met and you're doing a new production of something, and you're doing maybe a new piece, Fire Shot Up My Bones, or The Hours. I just worked a lot of time on The Hours. That's a fairly long rehearsal period, so you really have time to settle in. But the Met does, let's say, 7 shows a year, something like that. So obviously the vast majority of those are revivals, and a revival doesn't have as long of a rehearsal period. So if you, as you just said, if you come from Covent Garden or Paris Opera, you come to the Met, you're doing Elixir of Love in 2.5 weeks, that's not going to be as much rehearsal, and you don't really have time to ease into it as much as you might if you were doing a new piece. So a prompter is a real help And add to that, suppose that's the A run. So what we call the A run is the first run of a piece. If during the season,
what do you mean
the piece
of the piece?
That's what I mean. Yeah. So if during the season we do a piece, let's say Traviata, it comes and goes a few different times. Each period has a letter designation. So the A run of Traviata is the first bunch of Traviata performances. So that ends in November, let's say. Traviata then comes back in January and is going to be rehearsed again. We call that the B run. That finishes. If it comes back again, that's the C run. There wouldn't be more than that, let's say. So we call those the ABC runs of a piece. The subsequent chunks usually don't have as much rehearsal. So if it's a revival, you already have a fairly diminished rehearsal period, and then even less for the B, even less for the C. So super valuable to have a prompter if you're just going to have a short rehearsal time.
And the cast could be different.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, most likely the cast will be different.
Right.
Hence the reason for different periods and that makes for different interest for the audiences. Yeah, sure.
Right. And one of the things that you also do is to coach the Mets and to
Yes.
and to help them musically. What's the job of a coach? And
Yes. Well, being a coach in opera is a really fascinating job that covers a lot of different things in different situations. So coach in at the Met, in that opera house, can mean helping the singers prepare. It doesn't mean that the singers came and they weren't prepared. On the contrary, it means helping them feel comfortable in knowing that they know the music. So when I coach a singer, I'm in a room, just the singer and myself, and we go through their role. I play the orchestra music on the piano and sing the missing parts. So if Jorge comes to the Met and Jorge's going to sing Suzanne, it's going to sing Iago at the Met, then we play Otello on the piano and I sing the other parts that are missing, so that he has the experience of and the feel of singing his part with people bouncing off of him. Of course, that requires a certain skill from me that is not something that you necessarily learn as a solo pianist. That's part of what we study as a collaborative pianist. So coaching can be helping the singer prepare to learn the music, to know it better, to check their memory at the Met. That's what we try to make sure that we've coached everybody on a show. There may not be time to coach all the principals because generally we start right away with staging and music, but certainly we make sure that all the covers, alternates, are coached, and every role at the Met, every singing role has a cover. So all of those people are coached and prepared in the studio by someone on the staff, usually one of the two pianists, but it could also be by the prompter or the cover conductor or the principal conductor if he or she has time and is inclined.
And when you, let's say either the principal or the cover, when a new role
Right.
Which it does happens, how does that work?
Well, first of all, they get as much coaching as they want and as is practicable. In most situations, there's time over the run for them to work and coach with however many people they want. And in a new piece, especially a new contemporary piece, they may not have had the chance to work with someone who knows that piece and understands how that works. So they just come in the room and they have as much coaching as possible. If it's a piece that comes back a lot, another role that we play is we can tell them, look, I've done this piece here. with this conductor, Marco Armiliato, has come here and he's done Aida many times. I can tell you these are what his beat patterns are likely to be. So the singer already has some understanding and some preparation of what they're likely to see. What else? Tempi, we can already give an idea of what the tempo is likely to be and make sure that they're prepared with the maestro's tempo. Sometimes if a piece starts with a music rehearsal, then we can maybe pass on information to singers who weren't there, or firm up that information in coaching with the other singers who may have only been watching or may have not had a chance yet to do it. And we can say, look, you heard that his tempo and his or her tempo in this section was relatively fast, maybe compared to what you're used to. So let's practice that. Let's have a chance so that when you get up to do it in staging or when you have your first opportunity, it's not a big shock. It's not so new to your system.
So I hear that. So there's a lot of involving in make sure that they feel comfortable. What about dealing with vocal technique, musical ideas, diction?
Yes. At the Met, it's a little bit different than some situations. These are all things that are important for us as coaches to know and to be prepared to deal with, especially language. We all are trained in the pronunciation of the main singing languages, Italian, French, German, maybe Russian, maybe Czech, maybe Spanish. But at the Met in particular, we usually have a dedicated diction coach for those languages. So that person is the one who's in charge of making sure the singers are well prepared and that are pronouncing correctly and are using the language idiomatically. So it's not just a matter of having the right rules, but also speaking the sentence or singing as someone would for whom Italian or German or French is their native language. So we have coaches who specifically handle that. What was the other thing you said?
Musical ideas and
yes,
vocal technique.
Yes, musical ideas. Musical ideas, absolutely. We definitely put our fingers in that pie. But again, there's a bit of a hierarchy there at the Met. The authority, the musical authority, by tradition and by necessity, is the conductor in the room. The conductor is the pilot of that plane and has the responsibility for landing that plane on opening night and beyond. So he or she is the one who makes those decisions, and it's our job to bring to life those decisions. It's not our job to say, I do it this way, I prefer it this way, but Maestro does it some other way. That's not what we do. Vocal technique, there are different philosophies of this. My idea is that any conversation of vocal technique is simply to be sure that that what the singer thinks is coming across is actually coming across. It's definitely not to teach the singer how to sing, because in most situations, most of the time with coaches, we are not singers ourselves. That said, I feel it doesn't make sense to pretend that those things don't matter. And we usually have a lot of study and a lot of experience in being in voice lessons and working with singers over the years. I mean, I've been at the Met now. We've talked about all this, but we don't usually say years. But I've been at the Met now. This is my 24th season. So of course, there's a lot of experience there and a lot of information to pass on. So yes, we do sometimes talk a bit about vocal technique, suggestions of this or that. Listen, dear singer, blah, 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 blah. It would help you if your placement were a little bit better here, or if you did this with the language, it might help what you're doing come across a little bit better. In this particular auditorium, which is enormous, it might be better for you to think this way or think that way. we can talk about, sometimes we will talk about the way that they are putting the staging across, for example. So if someone, for example, ends up in a conversation across the stage instead of singing directly out into the auditorium, it's part of our job to let them know and reinforce that that doesn't work well in the Met. There, it maybe in some smaller houses you can do that and you can get away with that, and that works well. But in the Met, your sound disappears when you do that. It's just large.
All right. And new pieces, as you said, you were involved with this amazing new production, which is The Hours, which I
Yes.
adore. And you were involved both in the world premiere version, which was with the Philadelphia Orchestra. You were playing for rehearsals there with Yannick.
Yes.
And then you were also involved with the world premiere of the stage version.
Yes.
And how was the let's say the learning process or the preparation process the first time you did it? And in fact, Jennifer Johnson kind of was in that cast doing one of the main roles, and which is another big Savannah favorite.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Jennifer, in Philadelphia sang the role of Virginia Woolf, and covered that same role at the Met. Covered Joyce DiDonato, who sang that at the Met. Yes, first of all, I mean, it can't be said enough how much I love that piece, The Hours. I mean, it was one of my favorite experiences at the Met working on that. It's just wonderful piece of music, super communicative, well written. Yes, well, it was a little tricky to learn it for Philadelphia. I mean, as with many times when you're learning a new piece, you can't go listen to recordings of how it was done before, because there aren't any. They're often MIDI recordings of computerized sound of how it sounds, and that can help with making sure you have the right notes and making sure that you understand the tempi and just having something to practice along with. But it did take some time to learn it. That was also because it was a concert version, a fairly truncated rehearsal process. So we went to Philadelphia. We basically had maybe a week to have musical rehearsals with much of that was with our cover conductor there, Kinsho Watanabe, who then came and covered it at the Met. Incredible conductor, who's had a long experience with that piece over various workshop iterations and whatnot. So he knew it intimately, and he, with his gentle, calm, super authoritative, but wonderful to work with way of working, helped us prepare it and learn it. So yeah, so that was a short, quick, intense process, but fun, and it was certainly possible to learn it. All the singers came very well prepared, and we had dedicated music time where we could work and dig, and it was fun. I mean, Renee Fleming was there. Renee was the Clarissa Dalloway, and Kelly O'Hara sang the role of Laura Brown. She was also there in the Philly version and in the Met version. So this was super valuable for them, because when they came into the Met, they already had the larger part of the experience done. I mean, there were a lot of changes and rewrites, and as is always the case in a new piece. And I've done a lot of new pieces at the Met. I had the opportunity to work on American Tragedy of Tobias Picker, The First Emperor, Tandun opera, and those are all really special experiences for me. I did get to work on Nixon in China and Dr. Atomic, which were not new works, but they were new to the Met at the time. And in the case of Nixon in China, I got to work with John Adams, conducting and working through that. And that was a real treasured memory. And I hasten to add, with the great Peter Sellers as a director, I mean, what an unbelievable experience that was. So
we had to stop. One of the reasons why I'm here at the Opera Guild at New Orleans Opera is because I have the orchestra rehearsal right now starting in 3 minutes. So I need to go downstairs. And thank you, Howard, for being with us. It was fantastic. Kiani will answer your question privately. She asked the process on learning your piece, but we don't have time for you, Howard, to answer. So maybe we do another chat. I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk again.
Part 2.
All right, Howard, any words for Savannah?
Savannah has been, I mean, we didn't have a chance to talk that much about it, but Savannah has been one of the absolute lights of our work as musicians and as coaches, getting to work with the young singers and getting them to understand what happens behind the scenes and in front of the scenes of where they might want to be.
Great. Excellent. Thank you, everyone. And I will see you next time at the Voices of the Festival. Take care. Bye, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.